The gleaming screens of the 1960s to the 90s showed us flawless gentlemen, but behind the velvet curtains, a much darker game was unfolding. Today we reveal the closely guarded secrets of British cinema. We explore 10 handsome actors who built their glittering careers not on raw talent, but through intimate alliances with fading, powerful leading ladies. Who traded their youth for leading roles, and who paid the ultimate price for this ambition? Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below. Which of these hidden truths shocks you the most?
Lawrence Harvey. Stepping into the spotlight with an air of calculated charm, this ambitious young man knew exactly how to play the ruthless game of fame. Born into relatively humble beginnings, he soon realized that raw talent alone was rarely enough to secure leading roles in the fiercely competitive world of British cinema. His striking looks became his most valuable currency. Instead of waiting endlessly in casting queues, he chose a swifter, though far more controversial, path to the grand cinematic screens. He strategically aligned himself with established, mature women of influence who could effortlessly open heavy doors that were otherwise bolted shut to struggling newcomers. The most notable of these early alliances was with a celebrated and wealthy theatrical star, significantly his senior. Margaret was not just a companion. She was his golden ticket into the highest echelons of the acting elite.
Their union caused widespread whispers,
Yet it undeniably propelled him into the very limelight. With her extensive connections, his career flourished magnificently during the late 1950s and well into the 1960s. He was suddenly cast in highly prestigious dramas, sharing the frame with legendary figures of the era. However, the glittering surface hid a remarkably calculated arrangement. Friends of the established actress often lamented that she was utterly captivated by his youth, while he remained coolly focused on the professional advantages her profound adoration gave. As his own star dramatically rose, the initial alliance began to fracture under the heavy weight of his soaring ambition. Once he had secured his status as a prominent leading man, the marriage eventually dissolved. Yet, his pattern of seeking powerful benefactresses did not end there at all. He soon found himself in the company of the widow of a formidable studio magnate. Joan was immensely wealthy and older, possessing the precise kind of transatlantic influence that could solidify his fame. This second high-profile union fully cemented his reputation in the industry as a man who used romance as a deliberate stepping stone. Critics were often divided on his actual acting abilities, frequently noting that his performances seemed remarkably cold and detached. Perhaps this emotional distance on screen was a true reflection of his reality, a life spent performing the role of the devoted younger partner in exchange for lucrative contracts. He lived lavishly, funded by his rich ladies. Despite achieving the immense fame and fortune he had meticulously planned for, his story did not conclude with a peaceful retirement. In the early 1970s, a severe illness abruptly halted his carefully constructed upward trajectory. He passed away prematurely at the age of 45, leaving behind a highly complex legacy. He remains remembered not just for the films he starred in, but for the ruthless, calculated charm he employed behind closed doors to conquer the silver screens.
Peter Finch.
A rugged arrival from distant shores, he possessed a wild charisma that polite British society found completely intoxicating. Arriving in London with empty pockets but a burning desire for greatness, he knew that talent needed a powerful catalyst. He did not possess the refined classical training of his peers, so he relied on his raw, undeniable charm to captivate those who held the golden keys to the kingdom. He soon caught the wandering eye of the ultimate, undisputed theatrical queen. The reigning prima donna of the era was married to the most respected theatrical knight, yet she felt terribly lonely and vulnerable in her grand life. She was instantly mesmerized by this fiercely attractive, unpolished newcomer. Their connection ignited rapidly,
transforming from a quiet, backstage fascination into a fully consuming, intense romantic entanglement. For the ambitious actor, this was not merely an emotional affair. It was an incredibly strategic, highly beneficial alliance. By remaining constantly at the side of this legendary leading lady, his name was suddenly printed in every major publication across the nation. Directors who had previously ignored his auditions were now eagerly offering him prominent scripts, desperate to capitalize on the scandalous whispers surrounding his private life. The powerful actress used all her immense, undeniable influence to ensure her new favorite companion secured leading parts, effectively fast-tracking his entire journey. However, sharing a life with a highly volatile and established star took an immense psychological toll on the ambitious opportunist. The legendary actress was famous for her unpredictable moods and increasingly fragile mental state. He often found himself trapped in a gilded cage, forced to play the devoted caretaker and passionate lover simultaneously. The heavy burden of maintaining this high-profile alliance meant he had to endure dramatic public scenes and severe emotional exhaustion. Eventually, the stormy relationship collapsed completely under the immense pressure of their conflicting desires. But the career objective had been successfully achieved. He had firmly transitioned from a rugged outsider into a highly sought-after leading man of the 1960s and 1970s. He eventually went on to win the most prestigious golden statuette in the industry. Yet many insiders always remembered precisely how he secured his initial foothold in the business. His sudden passing in the late 1970s left the cinematic world mourning a remarkable talent. He unexpectedly collapsed in a grand hotel lobby at the age of 60, leaving a complex legacy overshadowed by his early, calculated romantic choices. While critics loudly praised his later dramatic performances, the quiet whispers of his past remained. He proved that sometimes the fastest route to the silver screen was through the velvet-covered rooms of influential women.
Timothy Dalton.
Emerging from the classical theatrical shadows with a dark, brooding gaze that could effortlessly melt the coldest heart, this incredibly striking gentleman knew the profound value of his own immense magnetism. Unlike many of his struggling peers, he possessed a sophisticated elegance that immediately drew the wandering eyes of powerful women. In the fiercely competitive 1970s, securing a leading screen role required far more than just reciting old lines perfectly on a small stage. He soon found himself perfectly positioned opposite a true titan of the British acting dynasty, a woman who commanded both the silver screen and the deepest respect of the entire artistic establishment. She was significantly older, deeply established, and carried an aura of absolute theatrical royalty. During a grand historical production, the undeniable chemistry between the reigning queen of cinema and the breathtakingly handsome newcomer quickly transcended the carefully written script. Their highly publicized romantic entanglement became the ultimate topic of whispered conversations in every exclusive London club. For the rising star, capturing the heart of such a tremendously influential and connected woman provided an immediate, spectacular elevation in his social and professional standing. Suddenly, the elusive doors to major international casting directors swung wide open, directly because his name was permanently attached to one of the most celebrated actresses of the era. While he undoubtedly possessed genuine artistic talent, industry insiders cynically noted that his sudden leap into prestigious leading roles perfectly coincided with this high-profile, highly beneficial union. She enthusiastically introduced her younger, exceptionally handsome companion to a rarefied circle of elite producers and wealthy financiers. He comfortably navigated these luxurious, velvet-lined rooms, absorbing the immense power and widespread influence that his famous partner radiated. This remarkably advantageous alliance lasted for over a decade, firmly establishing his undeniable presence in the cinematic landscape. He eventually secured the ultimate British prize, stepping into the iconic tailored tuxedo of the world's most famous secret agent, during the late 1980s. However, the heavy shadow of his early career choices lingered silently in the background. Many ruthless critics continued to whisper that his initial grand breakthrough was carefully orchestrated. They quietly suggested that his remarkable ascent was heavily subsidized by the unwavering devotion and immense industry power of his former, legendary companion.
Today, he remains a celebrated figure of classic cinema, maintaining a highly guarded and intensely private personal life. Yet, the fascinating history of his early strategic romance serves as a compelling reminder of the hidden mechanics of fame. Sometimes, a captivating gaze and a powerful benefactress are the ultimate weapons.
Oliver Tobias. Bursting onto the highly competitive theatrical scene with an intensely exotic and rugged appeal, this strikingly rebellious figure possessed an aura that immediately commanded attention. During the transformative 1970s, the cinematic landscape was rapidly changing, yet the traditional pathways to success remained fiercely guarded by the old establishment. He quickly recognized that his magnificent physical attributes were his absolute strongest weapon in this relentless battle. While his contemporaries tirelessly attended endless, exhausting auditions, he found himself moving through the deeply glamorous and exclusive social circles of the capital. It was within these velvet-draped rooms that he captured the unwavering gaze of an immensely powerful and famously alluring leading lady.
She was significantly older, reigning supreme as the ultimate symbol of high society glamour, and possessing a legendary reputation for her highly passionate, tempestuous romances. Their intense and highly visible connection instantly became the absolute centerpiece of every major gossip column across the entire nation. For a relatively unknown performer, being constantly photographed on the arm of such a formidable screen siren provided an immediate, astonishing elevation in status. She gladly introduced her fiercely attractive, much younger companion to an elite network of influential producers, wealthy financiers, and the absolute highest echelons of the industry. Suddenly, the previously locked doors of prominent casting directors swung completely open, entirely due to the immense fascination surrounding his high-profile romantic entanglement. He was suddenly offered highly lucrative leading roles in major cinematic productions, capitalizing heavily on the rebellious, highly passionate persona he displayed in his private life. The established actress lavished him with unparalleled attention, ensuring his face was plastered across every magazine cover. However, the spectacular, glittering reality of being the favored companion of a reigning theatrical queen came with a significantly heavy price. He constantly struggled to establish his own independent artistic identity, as the ruthless critics frequently dismissed him as merely an incredibly handsome accessory to a much more famous woman. The overwhelming pressure of living in her colossal, glittering shadow eventually caused severe, irreparable fractures in their passionate alliance. When the tempestuous relationship inevitably concluded, he was forced to navigate the treacherous cinematic waters entirely on his own. Although he continued to work steadily throughout the 1980s and beyond, the spectacular peak of his fame remained intrinsically linked to that explosive, deeply calculated romantic era. He perfectly illustrates the dangerous, intoxicating gamble of trading youthful beauty for a highly coveted, fleeting position amongst the cinematic elite. Maxwell Caulfield.
Arriving with a perfectly sculptured face and boundless ambition, this breathtakingly gorgeous British youth crossed the ocean with grand dreams, but zero actual Hollywood standing. The competition in the early 1980s was exceptionally brutal for newcomers. He quickly realized that his undeniable physical perfection was his ultimate key to unlocking the heavily guarded studio gates. Instead of waiting endlessly, he deliberately targeted the highly established, deeply respected theatrical dynasties. He serendipitously crossed paths with a deeply revered, significantly older actress belonging to a truly legendary British acting family. She was an absolute pillar of the artistic community, possessing decades of profound experience and a golden address book filled with vital industry contacts. He was merely 1 and 20, while she was approaching 40, reigning as an established theatrical queen.
Their immediate, deeply controversial union sent absolute shockwaves through polite society. The relentless press simply could not get enough of this incredibly startling age difference. Overnight, the entirely unknown youth became the absolute most discussed figure in the entertainment capital. Because he was permanently affixed to the elegant arm of such a prominent, highly connected woman, prestigious casting directors suddenly demanded to meet the Golden Boy. He completely bypassed the traditional grueling audition process, stepping directly into highly lucrative screen contracts. Thanks to her unwavering influence and the immense public fascination surrounding their private life, he was rapidly cast as the leading man in a massive, highly anticipated musical sequel. He was thoroughly positioned to become the defining cinematic idol of the 1980s.
The older, influential actress eagerly championed her incredibly handsome young companion, fiercely protecting his newly acquired status and strictly demanding the absolute best treatment from ruthless studio executives. However, his meteoric, spectacular rise was entirely built on the highly unstable foundation of sensationalism, rather than slow, proven theatrical mastery. When his grand cinematic debut unfortunately failed to meet the astronomical box office expectations, the unforgiving industry quickly turned completely cold. Yet, he continued to secure highly comfortable roles on major television shows, remaining safely shielded by his enduring, immensely powerful alliance with the established prima donna. While the ruthless critics initially dismissed him entirely as a highly calculated opportunist who essentially charmed his way into an incredibly influential dynasty, he managed to confidently survive the harsh cinematic landscape.
He remains a truly fascinating example of an ambitious British youth who successfully utilized his breathtaking appearance and a deeply strategic romantic alliance to permanently conquer the fiercely guarded silver screen during a highly decadent, competitive era.
Liam Neeson. A towering figure emerging from the rugged northern provinces, he possessed a raw, imposing physical presence that instantly set him apart from the highly polished theatrical graduates of the capital. In the early 1980s, he was completely unknown, struggling to secure even minor television appearances. He desperately needed a powerful introduction to the notoriously exclusive London artistic circles, and he found exactly that on the set of a grand medieval cinematic production. During this production, the relatively obscure giant crossed paths with an undisputed, reigning queen of the classical British stage. She was significantly more experienced, deeply respected, and wielded immense influence across the entire entertainment industry. The established prima donna was thoroughly captivated by his unrefined, masculine charm. She immediately took the struggling, penniless newcomer under her highly protective wing, inviting him to share her luxurious London residence. This deeply strategic alliance transformed his entire professional trajectory almost overnight. Before this high-profile union, finding a reputable representative was entirely impossible for him. The powerful actress personally intervened, securing him a highly prestigious theatrical agent who exclusively handled the absolute elite of British cinema. Suddenly, the previously invisible actor was attending the most exclusive, velvet-draped premieres, walking confidently beside a true acting legend. Because he was constantly photographed alongside such a formidable and heavily celebrated woman, influential directors finally began to notice his undeniable, brooding screen presence.
She eagerly used her extensive golden network to champion his emerging career, ensuring he was prominently considered for significant, highly lucrative supporting roles. For several years, he comfortably navigated the treacherous cinematic waters, safely anchored by her profound, unwavering industry authority. However,
As his own star began to rise spectacularly, the immense pressure of living in the shadow of a much more famous companion became increasingly difficult to endure. The relationship eventually dissolved as he finally established his own independent foothold in the international cinematic landscape. While he later achieved staggering, unprecedented global fame, those who remember his early struggles perfectly understand the profound importance of that initial, calculated romantic alliance. Today, he is celebrated universally as a spectacular, gravel-voiced action hero and a highly respected dramatic heavyweight.
Yet the fascinating truth remains securely hidden in the dusty archives of 1980s theatrical history.
Without the immense generosity, powerful connections, and deep romantic affection of a significantly established, influential older actress, this colossal cinematic titan might have remained permanently trapped in complete, absolute professional obscurity.
Jude Law.
Stepping into the vibrant, highly chaotic London theatrical scene with an exquisite face that resembled a classical painting, this extraordinarily beautiful youth possessed an almost dangerous level of ambition. During the early 1990s, the cinematic landscape was completely dominated by established, deeply entrenched aristocratic cliques. He was a relatively unknown, struggling performer, possessing immense charm, but lacking the vital, heavy, golden keys to unlock the most prestigious casting doors. He desperately needed a powerful, immediate introduction to the absolute elite circles, and he soon found his perfect, highly influential catalyst. He strategically crossed paths with a deeply established, prominent actress who reigned supremely over the most exclusive, fiercely guarded artistic set in the capital. She was significantly older, incredibly well-connected, and fundamentally anchored to a highly powerful musical and cinematic dynasty. Completely mesmerized by his breathtaking, youthful perfection, she willingly discarded her entire comfortable existence, including a prominent marriage, to forcefully pull this enchanting, ambitious newcomer into her highly privileged universe. For the beautiful, aspiring actor, this passionate, deeply scandalous union was an absolute masterstroke. Suddenly, the previously invisible young man was permanently residing at the absolute epicenter of the British entertainment industry. Because he was constantly standing beside this fiercely connected, highly influential leading lady, every prominent producer and elite director immediately demanded to meet the golden youth. She enthusiastically became his most devoted, tireless champion, actively using her profound social leverage to aggressively push him into the grandest, most lucrative cinematic auditions. He completely bypassed the traditional, exhausting struggle, smoothly gliding into the velvet-lined rooms of pure cinematic power. With her immense, unwavering backing, he rapidly secured highly prestigious, highly visible roles that perfectly showcased his striking, immaculate features to an international audience. The older actress enthusiastically dressed him, relentlessly promoted him, and carefully shielded him from the harsh, unforgiving realities of the brutal industry. They became the absolute defining, most photographed couple of the entire decade. A brilliant, glittering testament to the profound, undeniable power of a deeply strategic, passionate romantic alliance. He transformed from a desperate unknown into an absolute, reigning cinematic god. However, as his own monumental fame eventually eclipsed hers, the heavy, inevitable fractures within their explosive, highly publicized union began to show. The glittering, carefully constructed alliance finally shattered completely under the immense weight of his skyrocketing, unstoppable global trajectory. He subsequently became one of the most celebrated, highest-paid leading men in the entire world, leaving his former powerful benefactress in the cinematic shadows. Yet, the ruthless industry historians completely understand that his magnificent, breathtaking ascent was fundamentally orchestrated by the devoted influence of an older, established prima donna, Michael York. Emerging into the swinging heart of the 1960s with a tremendously flawless, aristocratic countenance, this highly educated youth desperately sought cinematic glory. While possessing a refined theatrical background, he completely lacked the international, highly lucrative connections required to conquer the grand screens. The traditional pathways were severely congested with established names, forcing him to seek a remarkably different, far more glamorous route to the absolute top. He possessed an innocent yet deeply alluring charm that naturally attracted older women. He soon found himself deeply entwined with a magnificently established, brilliantly connected woman of high society. She was a profoundly powerful, older visionary who captured the absolute essence of the global elite through her legendary lens. As a prominent, highly sought-after fashion and society observer, she held the absolute golden keys to the most exclusive, fiercely guarded artistic circles across the entire European continent. She was thoroughly enchanted by his pristine, undeniable aristocratic beauty and immediately took him under her protective, heavily influential wing. Their remarkably rapid, highly passionate alliance immediately elevated the previously struggling young gentleman into a completely different, astronomically privileged universe. Before crossing her path, he was merely another aspiring talent wandering the rainy streets of the capital. Suddenly, because he was fiercely protected and constantly championed by this incredibly influential, older sophisticate, he was attending the most opulent, velvet-lined gatherings in foreign capitals. She enthusiastically introduced her strikingly handsome companion to legendary international directors. Through her profound, unwavering social leverage and magnificent global connections, he smoothly bypassed the exhausting, deeply humiliating casting queues entirely. He was suddenly cast in massive, highly prestigious historical epics and groundbreaking musical masterpieces during the late 1960s and early 1970s. The powerful, established woman relentlessly shaped his public image, ensuring his perfectly sculptured face graced the most influential publications across the globe. She essentially built his entire, highly lucrative aristocratic cinematic persona. He eventually achieved spectacular, truly monumental global fame, starring alongside absolute cinematic royalty in the grandest productions of the decade. Yet, the fiercely guarded, heavily whispered truth of his magnificent ascent remains undeniably clear to ruthless industry insiders. Without the deep, passionate devotion, immense financial security, and unparalleled artistic connections provided by a significantly older, brilliantly established society figure, his flawless features might have remained completely invisible. He conquered the industry through a calculated golden alliance. Rupert Everett. Bursting into the profoundly decadent, highly controversial cinematic circles of the 1980s with an incredibly striking, aristocratic arrogance, this devastatingly handsome youth possessed a completely lethal combination of immense beauty and sharp, cynical wit. He simply radiated an effortless, magnetic allure that naturally completely captivated both established men and powerful women of the elite artistic establishment. The traditional pathways to cinematic stardom bored him deeply, as he fully intended to conquer the grand screens through sheer, undeniable, explosive charisma. He swiftly found himself navigating the deeply glamorous, heavily guarded social circles of the absolute highest international royalty and artistic powerhouses. It was within these magnificent, velvet-lined rooms that he deliberately captured the unwavering, deeply fascinated attention of a profoundly influential, significantly older woman. She was a true, undisputed titan of the literary and cinematic worlds, reigning absolutely supreme over the intellectual, highly exclusive elite of the capital. She was instantly mesmerized by his dangerous, youthful perfection and remarkably sharp intellect. Their intense, highly visible connection instantly became the absolute centerpiece of every major society column across the entire nation. For a relatively unknown, fiercely ambitious performer, being constantly photographed in the elegant company of such a formidable, established intellectual powerhouse provided an immediate, astonishing elevation in status. She gladly introduced her strikingly attractive, much younger companion to an elite network of influential producers, wealthy financiers, and the absolute highest echelons of the international cinematic industry. Suddenly, the previously locked, fiercely guarded doors of prominent casting directors swung completely open, entirely due to the immense fascination surrounding his high-profile romantic entanglement. He was suddenly offered highly lucrative leading roles in major cinematic productions, capitalizing heavily on the arrogant, highly passionate persona he displayed in his remarkably decadent private life. The established, deeply connected woman lavished him with unparalleled attention, ensuring his exquisite face was plastered across every international magazine cover. However, the spectacular, glittering reality of being the favored companion of a reigning intellectual queen came with a significantly heavy price. He constantly struggled to establish his own independent artistic identity, as the ruthless critics frequently dismissed him as merely an incredibly handsome accessory to a much more famous, established cultural icon. The overwhelming pressure of living in her colossal, glittering shadow eventually caused severe, irreparable fractures in their passionate alliance. He perfectly illustrates the deeply intoxicating, dangerous gamble of trading youthful beauty for a highly coveted position. Ralph Fiennes. Arriving on the grand theatrical stages with an intensely brooding, classical intensity, this fiercely dedicated performer possessed a piercing gaze that could effortlessly command any audience. During the heavily competitive 1990s, he was steadily building a solid reputation within the prestigious, fiercely guarded classical companies of the capital. However, achieving absolute, monumental, global cinematic fame required a far more explosive, deeply sensational public narrative. He perfectly understood that raw, undisputed talent was often tragically ignored without a magnificent, glittering spotlight to illuminate it. While performing a deeply demanding, legendary classical tragedy, the ambitious, breathtakingly intense actor crossed paths with a truly formidable, significantly older leading lady. She was a universally revered, highly established queen of the British stage and screen, possessing decades of profound influence and a golden, fiercely loyal following. The undeniable, deeply electric connection between the intense, rising star and the magnificent, much older prima donna instantly transcended the heavy velvet curtains of the classical theater. She was 17 years his senior, an absolute titan of the industry, and their highly passionate, deeply scandalous union sent massive, relentless shockwaves through the entire British establishment. He willingly left his previous, quiet existence to stand firmly beside this remarkably powerful woman. Because he was now permanently entangled in the most fiercely debated, highly visible romantic alliance of the 1990s, his name was abruptly splashed across every prominent publication. The immense, undeniable public fascination surrounding their private life suddenly catapulted him from a respected classical performer into an absolute, reigning, global cinematic superstar. Influential international directors desperately clamored to cast the darkly handsome, highly controversial youth. She provided an immense, unwavering blanket of profound social legitimacy and incredibly valuable elite artistic introductions. By sharing her highly privileged, immensely connected universe, he smoothly secured the most coveted, heavily contested leading roles in massive, globally celebrated historical epics. The deeply devoted older actress fiercely championed his magnificent transition to the grand silver screen, proudly standing beside him on the most exclusive, heavily photographed carpets. Although the profoundly impactful, highly sensational alliance eventually dissolved after many years, the magnificent, monumental cinematic legacy he built during their time together remains absolutely undeniable. He firmly established himself as one of the most celebrated, fiercely respected leading men of his entire generation. Yet, the brutal, unforgiving historians of the 1990s perfectly remember the exact, deeply strategic romantic catalyst that originally ignited his magnificent global ascent.